Quick little video about a ferry job going from Memphis, Tennessee to Spokane, Washington. It's not the jet, it's this little Piper Arrow. This trip was about 14 hours of flight time, so I'm just going to cover the more interesting points. Across the Mississippi River, 2,500 feet over into eastern Arkansas. Across eastern Arkansas and southern Missouri. Not a whole lot to see there, although I did get to cross over Stockton Lake, Missouri, where I picked up a seaplane rating a few years ago. After Stockton Lake, I continued on into Kansas, where I was getting close to my first stop for fuel. One of my favorite bands is from here, and I lived here for a while as a kid, but unfortunately I was on a mission and I didn't have time to visit with anybody. I do recommend Tammy's Billard Cafe though, they have really great food. If you're looking for some place to fly to eat, this is definitely worth it, and if you're not a flyer but you live in Topeka, it's worth the drive. The day before the trip, a system of snow had moved across Nebraska, covering it in a white blanket. About an hour later, I had passed where the snow was, and it was getting a little bit late in the afternoon, and I started to look for my destination, which was Valentine, Nebraska. Once I got the plane tied down, I found the keys to the crew car right where the airport manager told me they'd be. I got a room for the night, and then when I woke up the next morning and there was frost all over the windshield, I knew that the plane would have frost all over it as well. Despite my efforts to get there early and get a jump on the day, I spent a couple of hours getting all the frost off the airplane so I could safely fly it. Fortunately, I had a helper. Thanks, Mr. Dahl. A short time later, I was passing over the Badlands National Park in South Dakota. I'm pretty sure the reason they call it the Badlands is because it's a bad place to land. Continuing on a northwest heading, I passed Rapid City and Deadwood, South Dakota. The flight gets really scenic from here as it's the eastern edge of the Black Hills. Not too long later, I saw Devil's Tower off in the distance. I was about 12 miles from it when I videoed this. If you're old enough, you may recall seeing this in a Steven Spielberg movie back in the 70s. The weather in Billings was less than desirable, so I wound up taking a detour to Sheridan, Wyoming instead. I'm glad I did because the people at Bighorn Airways are very helpful, got me a crew car and fuel, etc., and I was on my way again. Crossing the Continental Divide was one of the high points in the trip, literally, as I was about 12,400 feet above sea level. From there, I followed Interstate 90 on in through the mountains of western Montana until I got to Missoula, where I stopped for fuel and a short break. Missoula sits in a valley, and so the airport runway has to be aligned with the valley for obvious reasons. My stay in Missoula was pretty short, but the people at Minuteman Jet Center were very efficient and helpful. I highly recommend them. Before I get to the end of the video, I just want to mention that I'll put all the pertinent flight information and stops in the description below, and if you have any questions, please comment. I will answer every one of them. I put in the final frequencies, and as I passed by Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I knew I was minutes from my last stop. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. Let's do this again soon.